All right, welcome back. As always, I'm Chad, and today we're going to be talking with Pablo Leon, who has a new young adult graphic novel, Silence Voices: Reclaiming the Memories from the Guatemalan Genocide, which comes out next month. Yep. So let's go ahead, bring him in, find out about him and the book.
Hey, how
Hey,
are you guys?
good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm good. Good. Thank you so much for giving me the space to talk about my book.
Hmm? Well, before we hop into the book, let me find out a little bit about you
Mm.
as a comic book reader and creator. Do you perhaps remember the first comic book or graphic novel, or what the first thing you read that got you interested in the medium?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like this is always like a big pressure question, right? Because you always want to find that perfect book. But I have to be honest, man. For me, it was like one of those random Superman stories when after he died and he became like four people. Like you had like Superman and
Yep.
Steel and everything. Uh, Honestly, it was one of those books. I read, and it was in English too. And at the time, I didn't speak. It was in my country, so I didn't understand what was going on, but I really just liked it. So, and then, but the real one for me was I got Mouse from my school library when I was in high school, and I think that was kind of like a revelation for me because it was like, oh, you can talk about these things in a comic. Like it's serious, and but it's also not, um, drawn in a way that it wasn't what I was used to as a comic. So I think that's what really like just opened something for me for sure.
Yeah. And after you read that, is that kind of made you want to, do it yourself, or was it a little more a bit more of a journey?
I definitely wanted to do comics, and I think from then on, and I went to an art school for illustration at the time. But long story short, I actually fell into animation, and I was just sort of doing that. I've been doing that was my main career has been in animation for the last 12 years maybe or so. And but I always had that itch to do comics. And at some point I just decided that to do it. There was no waiting, just waiting around for someone to tell me. So I started doing it just kind of on my own. I was mostly documenting things that at the time were important for me. I don't, not to get too ahead of it, but I was doing at the time I was talking to, they're not kids anymore, but at the time they were teenagers who they came across from Latin America to the US on their own. This was a time like in the early 2000s where this was kind of unheard of at the time. It's just unaccompanied children just showing up. And it was just sort of that was kind of like what I was doing in my own little comic space. I think like three, four people maybe read them, but I think that was enough for me. And that was really, I think at some point that's when an editor found that those comics, and we kind of published that online, and that's kind of what got me more into making them more, keep making them as I was still going with my other career.
Hmm. So let's hop right into Silence Voices then. Kind of tell us what it's about and give us a little bit of history on the background of the story's framing, I guess.
hmm Yeah, so Silence Voices is about. two sisters that they survive a massacre in the 1980s during the Civil War in Guatemala, and they more or less have to find themselves back to each other. But it also becomes the like a tale of the generational fallout of this event. What started all this is I'm from Guatemala, and for us, I mean that this was such a long. Chad, this was a 36-year war, like
Mhm.
unheard of. It was just so long and so much happened, and then it just ended. Just people just were like, okay, well, that's over. Go back to work, go back to your lives, and move on. And I think it's impossible to do that. It's so that was kind of my goal to kind of talk about this event, but also connect it to a lot of these other things that not just with this country as well, with the U.S., but just there's so many people that first or second generation kids of people that fled the country that they have no idea that this even happened. They don't have, and it's not their fault. It just simply happens that some people just decided not to talk about it once
Mhm.
they left the country. So the book is sort of like I would call it like an entry point into this horrible conflict, so other people can read it and know about it. Um, this is another thing. The other thing about this is that in Central America, like we had these multiple conflicts that were happening, and honestly, no one knows about, no one hears about them outside of our of that sphere. So I guess the whole thing is, bringing awareness to it and trying to find some kind of dignity to the people that we lost and the people that were never found. Um, and I think in some ways this is a digestible way of doing that, through this medium.
Mhm. So, as you were working on the book, how did you know, develop the story? Did you research? Did you draw from your personal experiences? Tell us a little bit more about that and flesh that out.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, I'm from there. The conflict ended in 1996. So I grew up in the tail end of the 90s over there. Obviously I was a child though. I knew that there were things happening, but it was just completely above me of what really was happening. So, um, somewhere maybe like around 2013 or something, that's when I really started getting into the bigger research side of things. Just reading documents, talking to people that was very hard, because I think a lot of people just they rather not talk about their experiences with good reason, with absolutely good reason. It's
Mhm.
okay, and so I started just loosely doing that, and then as the years kind of went on, I did it some more, and so at one point I had a story. So the story of there's this book is divided in two parts. The story of the sisters in the 80s, it's the core of what happened. And then we have the story of the present, well, loosely present, 2013. Um, and those are the story of the kids of one of the sisters. And so for the story of the sisters, I did have to that is basically put together from several accounts, like real accounts of just people who really just tried to survive as best as they could. And and then that was I would say very very hard, because what I learned about these kinds of historical accounts is that if you read a lot of them, if you read a lot about a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, um, you start feeling very, very, it starts weighing on you to a
Mhm.
degree where you feel terrible all the time. So that was one of the things that I learned from this book was definitely um, therapy helped for sure. Um, and then there's the story of the brothers. The story of the brothers. That was I would say that was a bigger research, to be honest, because not growing up in the States entirely. Um, I did go out of my way and I started just talking to first, second, third generation, not Guatemalans, but just um, any people not from the States, because what I've noticed is that their experiences are very much connected. There's always um, this feeling like something is missing for them, or something is sort of being hidden from them about themselves that they don't know. And that was sort of the moving piece with this character, especially the character that starts all of this, starts trying to find out about his heritage, about what the country of his parents, what happened. And as they start finding out more, um, I think those conversations start getting really complicated with their families, with their parents. So that is basically that one was a couple of months of just really just sitting down and talking to people like that, people from the second, third generations, and just listening to them. Um, not necessarily criticizing their families, but just kind of like I wish they would be saying something. Oh, I wish we had talked more. I wish they had told me more about where I'm from or where our roots are from. So I think that's the kind of where that story goes. So that was kind of the research that I did for that part. But yeah, for the part of the 80s, the sisters, it was really just a lot of talking, a lot of interviews,
Mhm.
and just a lot of reading too. There's a lot of documented levels of violence that I didn't think I could could ever see. But you know, yeah.
Now, how do you take, you know, an event like this and make it into a young adult graphic novel? Because I mean, it's a very heavy subject. There's some very mature themes involved. How do you, take, I guess, reality and kind of, I'm not, I don't want to say like sugarcoat it, but
Mhm.
kind of make it presentable to a younger audience.
Yeah, so I think it changes a little bit. When I was making a short film while I was kind of developing this comic, and it was about the Salvadorian Civil War, which different conflict, neighbor country. But when I was doing that, and mind you, I had a couple of producers, but I didn't have an editor. I didn't have any. It was just me writing and putting this together. And I think the great thing about animation, which is very similar to comics, is that it takes so long to make it. Just it takes forever. So I think what changed was my perception of how to portray certain levels of violence, and
Hmm.
how we put in the beginning, it was just with this book, there were a lot of things that I felt I feel now. I'm so glad that they didn't make it in, because as we were approaching, I was approaching all these documents, all these documented interviews about what people went through in their villages, in their everyday life, how people were disappeared, people got that were made examples of in front of the entire town. So when I started approaching those things, at first it was very literal. I was putting their words on paper and just kind of showing all that. And I think it's you know I don't think a person can take that much for so many pages or for so many minutes. Um, just see that those levels of like senseless violence. I think there's a limit to what we can do or what we can take. And so that's kind of where I started approaching it from a point of, okay, we can't avoid the violence. It happened. You can't avoid talking about it from with a civil war. So we see it, we read about it, we see some of it. It's all kind of happens off screen, off panel. We see expressions, their reactions, but we don't really see it. And I thought that was to me the best approach, because you don't want to be you don't want to be pornographic with like somebody's like experiences, somebody's like real experience. So I think that pretty much is what happened with the short film that I was making, and that's kind of what I brought to the book when I started like fully fleshing it out. It was like, okay, I we have to be respectful about it. It can't just be too raw,
Mhm.
and also think about our audience as well. You can't just throw so much to them that they're just not gonna want to go on with it. So, and the other thing is quite frankly that um, I think for when it comes to these like historical accounts, like everything that has to do with historical memory, it's better actually to um, I mean, to me, I almost wanted this to be a middle grade book, because I think it's easier for younger audiences to read about these things and kind of like take them in and analyze them and be able to talk about them, and then they talk about it with their parents, and then it kind of just spreads around like that. So I think that's where I was kind of approaching it in that way. It was more about um, that our younger generation can know that these these events happen, and
Mm.
so that was kind of yeah, the approach to that. Not necessarily having it for adults, not for us, but it's for everyone, for
Mhm.
our little ones. But honestly, anyone can read it, to be honest. So
Right. So let's take a kind of a step back,
mm,
look at the larger creative process now. Uh, how do you? Well, what's your process when you're? Do you? I mean, you probably write the script and then you go in and do the artwork. How do you? When you're doing that, do you work traditionally,
mhm.
digitally, hybrid? What works for you?
I write a script, although I would say this from experience of working in film, in TV. I mostly worked in TV. When I approach, this is mostly for this book. I approached this book with like, yeah, I'll write a script, and I wrote a script like a screenplay, um, and obviously it just doesn't translate as well as I thought it was gonna have. In my head, I was like, yeah, this is easy, just going over. So when I wrote the script as a film screenplay, and so when it came to doing my thumbnails, dividing things into panels and stuff, it was, I mean, because I'm drawing it myself, it was a little less of a pain to deal with somebody else, that they would have
Mhm.
to be dealing with my script. Like it was like I was blaming myself for like myself a year back about this, because you should have split this the panels. Um, so I know better now on that. But yeah, and then I would go into my layout, my thumbnails, and then this one I worked on it more traditionally. Traditionally in a sense that um, I did thumbnails, I did line work, and then color. Um, and I work mostly all digital. I work all digital now. Um, I say traditionally because I worked on a couple of books before this. More than likely, most people associate me more with Miles Morales' Shockwaves that came with from Scholastic. And that was a very untraditional approach. We had a layout artist, and they would just give me thumbnails, and I would, in the beginning, I would just do a black and white painting, and then I would do a color, and then eventually I was just going from thumbnails to color, like straight to finalize. So it was a very different approach than that. And I did like it. I'm mostly a painter. I What I do for my day job, I mostly do art direction. I do background design, background paint. So um, comics are very character heavy. If you're dealing with all these characters. So um, that was it. It was very liberating, very different approach to what I do day to day, but not very different what normal comic situations are. But but yeah, like I said, now I know better. I do my script normal, like a normal comic strip now. And yeah, no, I had a blast with this. I experimented a lot with different textures, different um not necessarily crazy color techniques, but like with shockwaves, but it was definitely a good transition, a good and different transition from that to a more serious topic.
Yeah. So, yeah, once what do you hope that readers get out of the book? What discussions do you think can come out of reading the book, and that perhaps could be applied to what's happening today?
Yeah. um
Nothing,
I
nothing like a loaded, nothing like a loaded question. Okay.
no. I mean, I love those. Yeah, yeah. So my hope with a lot of my personal work, a lot of these stories that I do, is always about remembering, remembering what happens, remembering our past, so it doesn't happen again. And it's always very easy to say, unfortunately, very hard to do. And I think what I would love for people to get out of this book is two things. Kind of bring awareness for it so it becomes a bridge to talk about um, these big problems that we had in the region. Um, but also, like I said before, it's about bringing dignity to the ones that we lost, and I think that's very important for me because we had about 200,000 victims in this war, and there's so many of them that there's no bodies left. There will never be a family. There will never be a family that will take them in. Um, there's nothing, and so I think being able to talk about this openly and it just brings that awareness to it, brings that dignity back to the ones that we lost. But yeah, first mostly it's just about having this opening the conversation and being a bridge for it. Because the other thing as well is, as with anything, any local civil conflict, it's always, you know, there's always another side to it.
Mhm.
So um, there's always that other side that, unfortunately, it's not to say that they're wrong, but uh, a lot of this is very, very documented. So whenever in my country, whenever we talk about these things, about this event, it's always like, why are you talking about it? It's in the past. Let it go, move on. But unfortunately, um, these kind of events unfortunately redefine or and define a lot of what society goes through, and it happens. We still feel in this, in the U.S. we still feel the waves of a lot of the conflicts that we've gone through the past. Um, we still feel Desert Storm. We still feel you know, the War on Terror. Um, I mean, the resurgence of the Vietnam War. Now we're
Mhm.
kind of talking more about it, and we still feel the waves of those things. So just like for that you know in Guatemala, we feel the waves of this event. And it's also very connected to the US as well, because of this, like, migration kind of opened up, and now we had so many people left that are in this country and are going through, you know everything that's happening now, and they can't go back, or if they can go back, they have nothing. Like, so that's kind of pulling it back. But I guess, yeah, that's kind of where what I would love for this is just to be a bridge, to have this conversation again, to talk about these events more openly, um, and hopefully it's something that is accessible as well. I mean, my biggest, I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but I hope that it makes its way to Latin America. It makes its way
Mhm.
to Guatemala, and hopefully that is kind of my goal. My goal is for it to
Mhm.
be seen over there, so we have these and they're really uncomfortable conversations, but it's something that we should be having, now. Yeah.
So I know in 2019 you were nominated for the Eisner for The Journey, another
hmm
kind of a. What lessons, if any, did you learn from doing that you were able to apply to this project?
Um, let me see. Huh, that's a really good one. Um, I think it's very similar to what I mentioned earlier. When you do these, like, fact-based stories, this
Mhm.
very documenting kind of documented comics, um, you tend to get really, like, for me at least, I don't think this is the case for everyone, but specifically for me, I get really into these things, and I start maybe, like, conflating my own feelings with the feelings of what I'm reading or what I'm hearing. So after months of hearing, and just all about these, all the bad things that people go through, like, for instance, with the journey, it was talking about the and there were detention centers that were very, very different than the current ones, but just kind of like that, all that journey of the girl that, when she crossed through Mexico, and everything that she had to do, and it was just like, it was really hard to hear that. um and I felt so miserable about that. And so for Silence Voices, when I started it, it was kind of similar. I started feeling so depressed, because everything that I was just reading um, very heavy situations of just the way that, I mean, for instance, with this conflict, like the a lot of the victims of the conflict were women because the military would target women. This is a really weird thing, but they kind of regarded them as seed bearers of sorts. So
Mhm.
their the whole goal was squash the seeds. So it was like the seeds of the revolution, I guess. So reading all of that, those descriptions, they really got to me, and I think that's what I learned from that was start talking about it openly, like out loud. Like I feel terrible for my partner because she had to hear everything that I was just sort of like I had to like get it out of my system. And so I think that's kind of that was like a big moment of just kind of like coming to terms of like how to approach this without damaging myself either. And but also like the other thing that I learned from that was kind of talking about the hope from it, like the hope for the future. I think the journey. I think I sort of touched it a little on that, and I think this is all comes from like that growth that you have as you do more of this. You do more work and you like learn and grow as an artist. Is that with Silence Voices, like I just wanted to have like a little hope for the future. And
Mhm.
how does that look like? And how do we approach that? So, you know, it wasn't all just like, horrible, documents about war, but it was also about like hearing what people wanted, hearing what the outlook for the future is. What is the future for that country? What is and then for the first or second generation kids that live in the states, what is the future for, what do they want, how do they want to come together with their past and so move on. So that's kind of what I learned from that, was trying to bring more of that to the center or to the front, as because um I don't think I was mature enough at the time when I did the journey to do that. And I think now I'm like, okay, I think I kind of am a little better about that now. So yeah.
So, anything else that you would like to mention about the book, or anything that maybe we didn't cover that you want to make sure that people know?
Yeah, I think I I hope I didn't undersell it too much. But I think it's you don't have to be from that country, from Guatemala, to understand what this is about. I think it's a book where there is, a lot of human suffering, but there's also like a lot of room for hope, for growth, and for the future. And I think that's kind of the just what I was just talking about. Like I think that's something that I want more people to come out of it reading it. Like be it a bridge to talk about not just this event, but like everything that is happening right now, just across the region, across the world. And and how do we come to a how do we combat that? How do we come out of there and come out well from this? And how do we heal from these situations? So that's really what I feel like the book is, what I was trying to convey is that healing for the future. So hopefully that it comes across. And you know um yeah, no, that's really it. Hopefully people pick it up. And if I am always happy to hear both sides, every opinion. If you didn't like it, if you liked it, eh, you know
So, as we close out here, why don't you give like a final pitch for the book, and when it comes out, and where people can follow you if you happen to be on social media.
Yeah, yeah. Let me see. One final pitch for the book. So, oof. Give me 1 second. Let me see
Sure.
what I can come up with that one. So Silence Voices is the story of two sisters that they do not get along. They have their own problems with each other, and then a war happens that just separates them. And when that reunion finally happens, we see that because we see that as the generational fallout that has just crunched this story. So to me, what I want people to get from this is that the seeds of the future will hopefully help us heal these terrible events that happen. So hopefully that is what this book is about, and hopefully if you're into that kind of stuff, I hope that you pick it up. Where is the book? The book is probably everywhere. It will be sold everywhere you buy books from. A bookshop, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, everywhere. And you can find me online as Artsy Papster everywhere. I mean, should I type it down?
Hey, yeah, I'll get it. Don't worry.
Okay. Man, yeah, I got that username when I was younger, and unfortunately, I just could never get rid of it. And now I'm like, oh no. So I am everywhere online as Artsy Popster. Just find me there. I'm more active on Instagram and Blue Sky. So just find me there. Write me up, and let me know how you like it, if you like the book.
Oh, I have a few more pages to go through, but so far I've been enjoying it.
Man, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And I look forward to looking at hopefully looking at a physical copy once they come out.
Me too.
All right, well, I want to thank you for taking the time today to chat about the book. Best of luck as it releases, and you're welcome back anytime to chat about anything else you have in the works or coming up.
No, yeah, dude, thank you so much. I appreciate the time, and hopefully everyone enjoys the book. And yeah, I hope I didn't ramble too hard. And
Nope.
yeah.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thank you.